The glass shattered before the insult finished landing. Yara Okoye looked up from wiping down table 9, and a wine bottle exploded against the cafe wall behind her head. Red liquid sprayed across the menu board like blood spatter. Shards rained down onto the floor. The room went silent, then erupted in laughter. "Sing for us," a man's voice said, not loud, not angry, just certain. Every table turned toward the front of the lounge. Yara's fingers tightened around her cleaning rag. Her pulse hammered in her throat. The man standing near the piano wore an ivory suit that probably cost more than she made in 6 months. His black hair was swept back, his face calm, his eyes dark and amused. He tapped one finger against the polished piano lid. "If you can sing this opera aria," he continued, his smile widening, "I'll marry you." The cafe exploded with noise. Someone whistled. Someone else shouted, "She can't even carry plates without spilling." A woman near the window raised her phone and started recording. Before we continue, besties, please show some love by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us bring you heartfelt, unforgettable stories every single day. And don't forget to comment your location and the time you're watching. Let's see how far this story of love and fate has traveled across the world. Yara's manager, Mrs. Kessler, rushed over from behind the counter. "Sir, please, she's just a waitress. She doesn't know anything about Puccini," the man interrupted, still looking at Yara. "Vici d'arte. You know it, don't you?" Yara's blood turned cold. She did know it. She knew every note, every breath, every devastating phrase. Her mother's favorite aria, the one she sang the night everything fell apart. Mrs. Kessler grabbed Yara's arm. "Bring wine to table 4. Now, stop embarrassing us." Yara's hands shook as she picked up the bottle from the bar. She walked toward the man's table. The room watched her like she was already on stage. She tried to pour, but her fingers wouldn't steady. Wine splashed across the white tablecloth. "Clumsy," someone muttered. The man in the ivory suit leaned back in his chair. "If you waste another glass," he said quietly, "I'll buy this cafe and fire you myself." Mrs. Kessler nodded eagerly. "Yes, sir. Of course, sir." That's when Yara noticed the boy. He was crouched under table 7, small and trembling, clutching a backpack to his chest. His eyes were wide and wet. He looked maybe 6 years old. He stared at the front door like he was watching for something terrible. Yara knelt down slowly. "Are you lost?" He shook his head. "Hiding." "From who?" He didn't answer. Outside, black cars with tinted windows rolled past the cafe entrance, like sharks circling prey. The cafe doors opened. Conversation stopped. Music died. Even Mrs. Kessler went pale. 3 men in dark coats stepped inside first, scanning the room. Then the man in the ivory suit stood and turned toward the door. He wasn't the one in charge. He never had been. The real threat walked in next, Han Jae-ryong. Everyone in the district knew the name. The police pretended they didn't. He ran the ports. He owned half the clubs downtown. Judges took his calls. Witnesses disappeared. He never raised his voice because fear did it for him. He was shorter than Yara expected. Older, too. But when his eyes swept across the cafe, people looked away like they'd been burned. His gaze landed on Yara and stayed. "She looks terrified," he said pleasantly. "I like that." Mrs. Kessler rushed forward. "She's slow, Mr. Han. I apologize for—" "No," he said. "Slow is good. It gives me time to decide." One of his men walked toward table 7, toward the boy. Yara moved without thinking. She stepped between them, her body shielding the child. The man stopped. He looked back at Han. Han tilted his head, studying Yara like she was a puzzle. Then he smiled. "Move." She didn't. A gun appeared in the young man's hand, not pointed at her. Pointed down. At the boy. Han walked closer. He stopped in front of Yara, close enough that she could smell expensive cologne and gunpowder residue. "Sing the aria," he said softly. Or I take the boy. Yara's throat closed. The Aria, the one that destroyed her career, the one that killed her mother. The room held its breath. Yara looked at the piano, then at the boy, then at the gun. She stepped toward the piano. The aria wasn't just music. It was the memory she had buried for 10 years, the note her mother died trying to finish. The gun stayed aimed at the boy's head as Yara's fingers touched the piano keys. Would you protect a stranger's child if it meant facing your worst fear? Drop your answer below. Yara used to believe her voice could save people. She was 12 when her mother first took her to the conservatory. The building smelled like old wood and rosin. Other students came from families with money, with connections, with names that opened doors. Yara came from a one-bedroom apartment where the heat didn't work in winter. But when she sang, the room changed. Her mother stood in the back during auditions, hands clasped, eyes wet. Yara hit the high note in O mio babino caro, and the panel went silent. One judge whispered to another. A third wrote something down fast. She got the scholarship. For 6 years, her mother worked double shifts at the hospital to pay for private lessons. Yara practiced until her throat ached. She learned Italian, German, French. She memorized every aria her teacher assigned. She dreamed of stages in Vienna, Milan, New York. At 18, she was invited to perform at the annual donor gala, the conservatory's biggest night. Scouts would be there, directors, producers. Her teacher said it was her moment. She chose Vici d'arte, Puccini, her mother's favorite. The night of the performance, the concert hall glittered with chandeliers and champagne. Yara wore a borrowed gown. Her mother sat in the aisle, third row, beaming. Yara stepped onto the stage. The spotlight blinded her. She opened her mouth and sang. The first 2 minutes were perfect. The audience leaned forward. She felt the power in her chest, the control in her breath. She was flying. Then her mother collapsed. Yara saw it happen mid-phrase. Her mother's face went gray. She clutched her chest. Someone screamed. The music stopped. Yara ran off the stage. By the time the ambulance arrived, her mother was unconscious. Stroke. Massive. The doctor said she'd been ignoring symptoms for months. Overwork, stress, untreated hypertension. The donors blamed Yara. They said she pushed too hard, that her ambition drained her mother, that talent without humility was a curse. The media picked it up. Rising star's mother collapses during performance. They called her voice dangerous, obsessive, cursed. The conservatory pulled her scholarship. Scouts stopped calling. Her mother survived, but she never walked again. Never spoke clearly. The medical bills buried them. Yara took shifts at diners, gas stations, laundromats. She stopped singing, stopped listening to music, stopped going by her full name. She ran. She moved to a new city where no one knew her face. She changed her hair. She worked in the back of kitchens where no one asked questions. She sent every dollar she earned to the care facility where her mother lived in a bed with machines that beeped and hissed, and she swore she would never sing again. Now, standing in front of Han Jae-ryong's piano, Yara felt the weight of that promise crushing her ribs. The boy under the table whispered something. Yara couldn't hear it over the blood pounding in her ears, but she saw his lips move, saw the way he hugged the backpack tighter. She recognized that fear, the kind that came from being trapped, from knowing no one would save you. The boy's words weren't random. They were coded. The way people trained to survive talked. Han's man tightened his grip on the boy's shoulder, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. If your greatest talent was also your greatest trauma, would you use it to save a life? Tell us below. The first note cut through the room like a blade. Yara's voice rose from somewhere deep, somewhere she thought she'd buried. The cafe went silent. No whispers, no phones. Even the man holding the gun went still. She didn't look at anyone. She looked at the boy. His wet eyes, his shaking hands. She sang for him. The melody climbed higher, her chest opened, her throat remembered what her mind had tried to forget. Every breath her mother taught her, every phrase they practiced together in their cramped apartment while rain hit the windows. Vici d'art, vici d'amore. I lived for art, I lived for love. The words weren't just Italian. They were her mother's last coherent sentence before the stroke stole her voice. They were the promise Yara broke when she ran. A woman at table 3 started crying. A man near the bar put down his drink. Mrs. Kessler's face went white. The gun lowered. Yara kept singing. The aria demanded everything. High notes that shredded her control. Low phrases that pulled grief from her ribs. She gave it all. When she hit the final note, the room held it with her. Silence stretched like glass about to break. Then someone clapped. Then everyone did. Han Jae-ryong didn't clap. He stood near the piano, hands in his pockets, watching her the way a jeweler examines a diamond. Not impressed. Calculating. "Who trained you?" he asked. Yara's legs shook. "My mother." "Where is she now?" "In a bed. Machines keeping her alive." Han's expression didn't change. She must have been exceptional. She was. He turned to the boy still crouched under the table. "Come here." The child hesitated. Yara stepped forward, but Han raised one hand. "He's safe. Come." The boy crawled out slowly. He stood next to Han, barely reaching his waist. Han knelt, put one hand on the boy's shoulder. "This," he said to the room, "is my son." The cafe erupted in gasps. Yara's heart stopped. She had shielded the Mafia boss's child. She had stood between a loaded gun and the heir to half the city's underworld. Mrs. Kessler made a choking sound. She stumbled backward into a chair. Han stood. "You accused her of stealing," he said, his voice calm and cold. "Confess." Mrs. Kessler's mouth opened, closed. I made a mistake." Louder. "I made a mistake." Her voice cracked. "The jar was under the counter. She didn't steal anything. I'm sorry." "You called her slow," Han continued. "You said, 'you people.' What did you mean?" Mrs. Kessler looked around for help. No one moved. "I didn't mean..." "Say it." Tears ran down her face. "I was wrong. I'm sorry." Han turned back to Yara. "Do you accept her apology?" Yara couldn't speak. Her throat was raw. Her hands were numb. She nodded. "Good," Han said, "because she no longer works here." Mrs. Kessler gasped. "Please, Mr. Han, I need this job." He ignored her. He walked to Yara, stopped close enough that she could see the calculation in his eyes. "You don't belong in cafes." "I need the work," Yara whispered. "You need protection." He glanced at the boy. So does he. Outside, car engines rumbled. Shadows moved past the windows. Han's men positioned themselves at the doors. "Other syndicates heard you sing," Han said quietly. "They'll come for you now." Yara's stomach dropped. "Why?" "Because your voice makes people kneel." He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "I want that power." The cafe doors rattled. Someone was testing the locks. Han's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. His jaw tightened. "They're already here." "Would you trade freedom for safety if it meant protecting an innocent child?" "Drop your thoughts below." The black sedan idled outside Yara's apartment at midnight. She saw it from her window. Engine running, headlights off, waiting. Inside the cafe, Han had made his offer. "Get in the car, both of you." Yara thought he meant arrest, or worse. Instead, he drove them to a private office above a shuttered restaurant. Leather chairs, mahogany desk, contracts spread across the table like traps. The boy sat in the corner, clutching his backpack. He hadn't said a word since Han claimed him. "His name is Minjun," Han said. "He's 6. His mother died 2 years ago. Rival syndicate wants him dead because killing him kills my legacy." Huh. Yara sat stiff in her chair. Why tell me this? Because you're going to help me keep him alive. I'm a waitress. You were an opera singer. Han slid a folder across the desk. Conservatory scholarship. Donor gala. Your mother's stroke. I know everything. Her blood went cold. You investigated me? I investigate everyone who touches my son. He opened the folder. Inside were photos. Her mother's hospital records, her old performance reviews, her current address, her debt. You owe $73,000, Han said. Medical bills. Your mother's care facility doesn't take charity cases. They'll move her to state care in 30 days. Yara's hands clenched. How do you know that? I called them. She stood. You had no right. Sit down. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. She sat. Han leaned back. I'm offering a contract. You marry me, on paper, for protection. Rival syndicates won't touch you if you're my wife. They won't touch Minjun if he has a mother. You want me to pretend? I want you to survive. He tapped the contract. I pay your mother's medical bills, all of them. I give you a salary, a home, security. In exchange, you attend events. You sing when I need influence. You keep Minjun safe. Yara's heart pounded. And if I refuse? Han's expression didn't change. Your mother moves to state care. You lose your apartment. And Minjun? He glanced at the boy. He goes into hiding. Alone. 6 years old. Running from men with guns. The room tilted. Yara looked at Minjun. He stared at the floor, small and silent. You're blackmailing me, she said. I'm offering you a choice. That's not a choice. It's the only one you have. She wanted to scream. To run. To throw the contract in his face. But her mother's face filled her mind. Machines beeping. Nurses who barely looked at her. The administrator's letter. 30 days to arrange alternative care. And the boy. Trembling. Alone. Why me? Yara asked. You could hire anyone. Because you stepped between a gun and a stranger's child. Han's voice softened just slightly. That's not something you hire. That's something you are. He pushed a pen across the desk. Yara stared at it. Her vision blurred. If I sign, she said slowly, what happens to me? You become untouchable. And if I don't perform, if I can't sing on command, then we renegotiate. He paused. But your mother's care continues regardless. I don't punish people for being human. Yara's hand shook as she picked up the pen. The contract was 12 pages. She didn't read any of them. She signed her name at the bottom. Han took the contract, folded it, slid it into his jacket. Cars waiting outside your building. Pack what you need. You move tonight. Tonight? They know where you live. Fear spiked through her chest. Who? The people who want Minjun dead. He stood. And now that you sang for me, they want you too. Minjun finally looked up. His eyes met Yara's. He mouthed 2 words. Thank you. Yara's phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text read, You just made a terrible mistake. Outside, glass shattered. Someone screamed. Han's men rushed to the windows. They're here, one of them said. They're in the building. Would you sign a deal with a dangerous man to save 2 lives? Yes or no? Comment below. The mansion smelled like money and secrets. Yara stood in the foyer, suitcase in hand, staring at marble floors and a chandelier the size of her old apartment. Minjun clung to her side. Han's driver had brought them here at 2 in the morning. No explanation, just, you're safe now. She didn't feel safe. A woman in a crisp uniform appeared. I'm Mrs. Choi. I manage the household. Follow me. Yara's room was bigger than the cafe. 4-poster bed, silk curtains, a bathroom with heated floors. Through the window, she could see guards patrolling the garden. Mr. Han requests your presence at breakfast. Mrs. Choi said. 7 sharp. I'll send someone to help you dress. I can dress myself. Mrs. Choi's smile was tight. Not for this, you can't. The next morning, Yara learned what she meant. The stylist arrived with racks of clothes. You're representing Mr. Han now. Everything you wear is a message. They dressed her in a tailored dress that cost more than 3 months of waitressing. They fixed her hair, applied makeup. She didn't recognize herself in the mirror. At breakfast, Han barely looked up from his newspaper. Minjun sat between them, eating quietly. You'll attend a charity gala tonight, Han said. Donors, politicians, cameras. You'll be introduced as my fiancé. Yara's stomach turned. Already? Speed is strategy. The longer we wait, the more rumors spread. He folded the paper. You'll sing. 2 songs. I've hired a pianist. I haven't rehearsed. You don't need to. Just don't embarrass me. She wanted to throw her coffee at him. Instead, she said, What about Minjun? He stays here, guarded. Minjun's face fell. I want to go with you. Not safe, Han said. He's scared, Yara said. Let him come. Han's eyes met hers. Cold, final, no. That night, the gala was everything she feared. Champagne, designer gowns, men in tuxedos who smiled while calculating net worth. Yara stood next to Han, his hand on her lower back, as he introduced her to senators, judges, crime bosses disguised as businessmen. My fiancé, he said over and over. Yara Okoye, exceptional talent. She smiled until her face hurt. When it was time to sing, she stepped onto the stage. The crowd went silent. She opened her mouth and let the aria fill the room. This time, she didn't sing for a boy. She sang because it was her only weapon. The applause was deafening. Afterward, a man in a gray suit approached. Extraordinary performance. Thank you, Yara said. Your voice could move mountains. He leaned closer. Or governments. Something in his tone made her skin crawl. She stepped back. Han appeared at her side. Senator, enjoying the evening? Immensely. The senator smiled. Your fiancé is quite the asset. Asset, not person. Han's hand tightened on her waist. She is. Later in the car, Han was silent. Yara stared out the window. That senator, she said. Who is he? Someone who wants favors. What kind of favors? The kind your voice can grant. Her chest tightened. You're using me. I'm protecting you. His tone didn't change. There's a difference. When they arrived home, Mrs. Choi met them at the door. Her face was pale. What happened? Han asked. Minjun had a nightmare. He's asking for her. Yara didn't wait for permission. She ran upstairs. Minjun sat on his bed, tears streaming down his face. Yara pulled him into her arms. They were here, he whispered. The bad men. They were in my dream. Just a dream, Yara said. No. He pulled back, eyes wide. I heard them, downstairs, talking about you. Yara's blood froze. What did they say? That you sing too much, that people listen, that they need to stop you. Yara heard footsteps in the hallway, slow, deliberate, coming closer. The window behind them exploded. Glass shattered across the floor. A red dot appeared on the wall. Laser sight. Someone was aiming at her head. If luxury came with a target on your back, would you stay or run? Tell us what you'd do. The bullet hit the headboard 2 inches from Yara's skull. She threw herself over Minjun, crashing to the floor. Glass bit into her palms. Another shot punched through the curtains. Han's guards flooded the room. Gunfire erupted, outside. Yara crawled toward the bathroom, dragging Minjun with her. Her ears rang. Her hands bled. Stay down, someone shouted. The shooting stopped. Silence pressed against her chest like a weight. Han burst through the door. He scanned the room, then dropped to his knees next to her. Are you hit? She shook her head. Blood dripped from her palms. Minjun? I'm okay, the boy whispered. Han pulled them both to their feet. Downstairs, Now. They ran. In the basement safe room, Yara sat on a metal bench while a medic wrapped her hands. Minjun pressed against her side, trembling. Han paced. His phone rang constantly. He answered in clipped Korean, his voice sharp and cold. When he hung up, he looked at Yara. The sniper escaped. He was one of ours. Her stomach dropped. What? Someone inside this house is working for the rival syndicate. He glanced at his head of security. Find them. Sir, we've already started. Find them tonight. 2 hours later, they had their answer. Mrs. Choi, the woman who'd dressed Yara, who'd served Minjun breakfast, who'd smiled and called her ma'am. She sat in Han's office now, hands zip-tied, face blank. How long? Han asked. 6 months. What did you tell them? Everything. Schedules, security rotations, when she sings. Mrs. Choi's eyes flicked to Yara. They paid well. Yara's chest tightened. You tried to kill a child. I followed orders. Whose orders? Han's voice was ice. Mrs. Choi smiled. You'll find out soon enough. Han nodded to his men. They dragged her out. Yara didn't ask what would happen to her. She didn't want to know. Minjun tugged her sleeve. I'm thirsty. I'll get you water, Yara said. In the kitchen, her hands shook as she filled a glass. She heard Minjun's voice from the hallway. He was talking to someone. She walked back. He stood near the office door, ear pressed to the crack. What are you doing? Yara whispered. He looked up, eyes wide with fear. They're planning something. The bad men. I heard them talking on Mrs. Choi's phone before the guards took it. What did they say? That they need you alive. That your voice is worth more than killing you. He swallowed. They're going to take you. Tomorrow. On your way to see your mom. Yara's vision blurred. How do you know? Because I listen. His voice cracked. No one thinks I understand. But I do. She pulled him close. Later that night, Han found her in the library. She sat by the window, staring at nothing. You're going to see your mother tomorrow, he said. I know. I'll send guards. It won't matter, she looked at him. They'll come anyway. Han sat across from her. For the first time, he looked tired. My first wife died in a car bombing. Rival syndicate. She was pregnant. Yara's breath caught. I swore I'd never marry again, he continued. But Minjun needed a mother. And I needed... He stopped. I needed someone who wouldn't run. I signed a contract, Yara said. That's not the same as not running. You stepped between a gun and my son. That's not a contract. That's character. Their eyes met. Yara felt something shift, something dangerous. They want my voice, she said quietly. Not me, just what I can do. I want both. Her heart stuttered. Before she could respond, Han's phone buzzed. He read the message. His face went hard. What is it? Yara asked. They're moving faster than expected. He stood. We leave for the hospital now. It's midnight. I know. They took 2 cars, guards in front and behind. Yara sat in the back with Minjun sleeping against her shoulder. Halfway to the hospital, the lead car exploded. Yara screamed. Their driver swerved. Tires screeched. Another car slammed into them from the side. Everything spun. Glass, metal, blood. When Yara opened her eyes, she was on the ground. Her head throbbed. Minjun was gone. Hands grabbed her, lifted her, threw her into a van. The last thing she saw was Han fighting 3 men, blood streaming down, his face. Then the doors slammed shut. A voice in the darkness said, "Welcome, Miss Okoye. We've been waiting for you." The van's engine roared. Through the back window, Yara saw Han collapse. Minjun screamed her name, and the city disappeared behind her. Would you fight for a family that wasn't yours by blood? Drop your answer. We're reading every single one. The gala was underground. Yara woke in a basement that smelled like cigarettes and champagne. Her wrists were zip-tied, her head pounded. A man in a black suit stood over her. "Get up," he said. "You're performing tonight." She didn't move. "Where's Minjun?" "Safe, for now." He cut the zip ties. "Cooperate, and he stays that way." They dragged her upstairs into a ballroom that shouldn't exist. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, men in tuxedos holding glasses of whiskey. Women in evening gowns dripping with diamonds. Every single person in the room was a criminal. Yara recognized faces from the news. Trafficking bosses, cartel leaders, corrupt politicians. They stood in clusters, laughing, making deals. A man approached, tall, silver hair, expensive watch. He smiled like a wolf. "Miss Okoye, I'm Kwon Dae-jung. You've been making waves in my business." "I don't know you," Yara said, "but I know you. Your voice, your contract with Han." He gestured to the stage. "Tonight, you sing for us. Show these gentlemen what makes you so valuable. And if I refuse, then the boy dies, slowly." He leaned closer. "And your mother's machines get unplugged." Yara's chest tightened. "You're bluffing." He pulled out his phone, showed her a live feed, her mother's hospital room, a man standing in the corner, hand on the ventilator switch. "Sing," Kwon said, "or I make the call." They led her to the stage. A pianist sat waiting. The crowd turned to watch. Yara's legs shook. Her throat was dry. She didn't know what they wanted. Didn't know what this performance meant? Then she saw it. A tiny camera embedded in the microphone. A wire running down the stand. This wasn't just a performance. They were recording her. Kwon stepped to the podium. "Gentlemen, tonight we have a rare gift. A voice that moves governments, that sways public opinion. Imagine what we could do with propaganda this powerful." The crowd murmured approval. Yara's mind raced. If she sang, they'd use her voice for recruitment videos, for manipulation, for evil. If she didn't, her mother and Minjun died. She closed her eyes, thought of the boy's face, her mother's machines, Han bleeding in the street. She opened her mouth and sang. The aria poured out, but this time she changed the words. Subtle shifts, code phrases she hoped someone somewhere would recognize. Distress signals hidden in Italian. The audience didn't notice. They were too busy being moved, but the camera caught everything. Halfway through, a door at the back of the ballroom opened. A small figure darted inside. Minjun. He had a phone in his hand. Recording. Yara's heart leaped. She kept singing, louder now, making sure every word was clear. Kwon stood near the bar, smiling, convinced of his victory. He didn't see the boy slip behind the curtain, didn't see him connect the phone to the sound system, didn't see the live stream start. Yara hit the final note. The room erupted in applause. Kwon walked to the stage. "Magnificent. With this recording, His phone buzzed, then another, then 10 more. He looked at the screen. His face went white. "What is this?" he hissed. Someone shouted from the back. "We're live. The whole gala is streaming." The room descended into chaos. Men rushed for exits. Women screamed. The camera kept recording. Kwon grabbed Yara's arm. "You did this." "No," she said. "He did." Minjun stepped out from behind the curtain. He held up his phone. "Everyone saw you. The police, the FBI, everyone." Kwon's hand moved to his jacket. Gun. He pulled it out and aimed at Minjun. Yara threw herself in front of the boy. The gun fired. Pain exploded in her shoulder as she hit the ground, and the last thing she heard was Minjun screaming her name. "Would you take a bullet for someone else's child? Tell us what you would do in her place." The bullet tore through Yara's shoulder. She collapsed. Blood spread across the stage floor. Minjun screamed. The room erupted in gunfire. Kwon's men fired at the exits. Security returned fire. Guests scrambled for cover. Through the chaos, Yara heard it. Boots, heavy, fast, military. Han kicked down the front door with 15 armed men behind him. His face was covered in blood from the car crash. His suit was torn. but his eyes were cold and focused. "Minjun," he shouted. The boy crawled to Yara. "She's hurt." Han saw her, saw the blood. His expression darkened into something murderous. He raised his gun and fired. Kwan's bodyguard dropped. Han moved through the ballroom like a storm. His men flanked him. They weren't there to arrest anyone. They were there to destroy. Kwan tried to run. Han caught him by the collar and slammed him against the wall. "You touched my family," Han said quietly. "She's not your family. She's a contract." Han's fist broke Kwan's jaw. "She bled for my son." He fired twice. Kwan crumpled. Outside, sirens wailed. Police surrounded the building. The live stream had done its job. Evidence of trafficking, corruption, and murder broadcast to thousands. Han dropped to his knees next to Yara. "Stay awake." She tried to speak. Blood filled her mouth. "Medic!" Han shouted. Minjun clung to her hand. "Don't leave. Please don't leave." Yara's vision blurred. She heard voices, felt hands lifting her. The last thing she saw was Han's face, not cold, not calculating, afraid. She woke 3 days later in a private hospital room. Her shoulder was bandaged. IV drips ran into her arm. Machines beeped steadily. Minjun sat in a chair by the window, asleep. Han stood near the door. "You're awake," he said. Yara tried to sit up. Pain lanced through her shoulder. "Minjun, safe, because of you. Kwan, dead." Han walked closer. "The police have the evidence. 15 arrests, 3 senators, 2 judges, half the trafficking network dismantled." Yara closed her eyes. "My mother?" "Still alive. I moved her to a better facility. Private care. She's stable." Relief washed over her. "The doctor said you were lucky," Han continued. "The bullet missed the artery by centimeters. Doesn't feel lucky. You saved my son's life." Yara looked at Minjun. He slept peacefully for the first time since she met him. "He saved mine first," she said. Han sat in the chair next to her bed. "The media is calling you a hero. The woman who exposed the syndicate. They want interviews, book deals. I don't want any of that. What do you want?" She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was barely a whisper. "To know if my voice still works." Han's expression softened. "The doctor said your vocal cords are intact, but you won't know until you try." Yara opened her mouth to test it. Nothing came out, just air, silent and empty. The doctor entered, charts in hand. "Miss Okoye, we need to discuss your prognosis. The trauma to your shoulder affected the nerves near your throat. You may never sing opera again. If you lost the one thing that made you special, would you still fight to survive? Share your strength below." 6 weeks later, Yara stood in front of a mirror. Her shoulder had healed. The scar was pink and raised. She could move her arm again, though it ached when it rained. But her voice was gone. She'd tried. Every morning, small scales, simple melodies. The notes came out cracked and thin, nothing like before. The doctor said it might return, or it might not. Trauma did strange things to the body. Han had kept his promise. Her mother was in the best care facility in the city. Yara visited twice a week. Her mother couldn't speak, but she squeezed Yara's hand when she sang. Even broken notes seemed to comfort her. Minjun had nightmares. Yara sat with him most nights, reading stories until he fell asleep. The contract was still active. Legally, she was Han's fiancée, but he hadn't mentioned marriage since the shooting. Hadn't asked her to perform. Hadn't demanded anything. One evening, he found her in the music room. "You don't have to stay," he said. Yara looked up from the piano. "What?" "The contract. I'll void it. Your mother's care continues. You get a settlement. You're free." Her chest tightened. "Why?" "Because you didn't sign up to take bullets." He sat on the bench next to her. "You signed to survive. You've done that. The syndicate is broken. Minjun is safe. You don't owe me anything." Yara stared at the keys. What if I want to stay? Han went still. Why would you? Because Minjun needs me. Because my mother is here. Because... She stopped. Because I don't know who I am without this. You're more than a contract. Am I? She met his eyes. 6 weeks ago, I was nobody. Now the media calls me a hero. Strangers send letters. But when I try to sing, nothing comes out. So what am I? You're the woman who stepped between a gun and a child, Han said quietly. That hasn't changed. Yara's throat ached. Not from injury, from grief. I want to try, she said. One more time, a real performance, in front of people. You don't have to prove anything. I'm not proving anything. I'm deciding. She stood. If I can sing again, even once, I'll know it's not gone forever. And if I can't, she swallowed. Then I'll let it go. Han studied her. When? Next week. The charity benefit. The one you mentioned. That's 500 people. I know. If you fail, I'll fail in front of everyone. Yara's hands shook. But at least I'll know. The day of the benefit, Yara dressed in a midnight blue gown. Her hair was swept back. Her hands were steady. Minjun hugged her before she left. You'll be amazing. What if I'm not? Then you'll still be you. The venue was packed. Cameras, donors, politicians who'd survived the scandal. Yara stood backstage, listening to her introduction. Please welcome Miss Yara Okoye. She walked onto the stage. The spotlight blinded her. The crowd went silent. She opened her mouth. The first note cracked. Gasps rippled through the audience. Yara's heart sank. She tried again. The note wobbled. Thin, weak. Someone coughed. She wanted to run, to disappear, to pretend this never happened. Then she saw Minjun in the front row. Han sat next to him, both watching, both believing. Yara closed her eyes, thought of her mother, thought of the cafe, thought of the gun and the boy and the choice that changed everything. She sang. This time the note held, fragile, imperfect, but real. She kept going. The aria built slowly. Her voice wasn't what it used to be. It cracked in places, faltered in others, but it was hers. By the final phrase, tears ran down her face. The room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Minjun, then Han, then the entire audience rose to their feet. Backstage, Han waited. You didn't need to be perfect, he said. You just needed to be brave. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, not the contract ring, a real one. Marry me, he said, not because you have to, because I want you to. Would you choose love that started as survival, or walk away free? Drop your truth below. 3 months later, Yara stood on the stage at the city's largest concert hall. She wore white, not a wedding dress, a performance gown. Minjun sat in the front row next to her mother. The care facility had brought her in a wheelchair. She couldn't clap, but her eyes were bright. Han stood in the wings, not controlling, just watching. The crowd was silent. Waiting. Yara stepped to the microphone. 3 years ago, I sang this aria and lost everything. Tonight I sing it and take everything back. She nodded to the pianist. The first notes of Visi d'arte filled the hall. Her voice wasn't perfect. It cracked on the high notes, wavered on the low ones, but it was powerful. Honest. Alive. The audience didn't move. When she finished, the silence stretched for 3 seconds. Then the room exploded. Standing ovation. Flowers thrown onto the stage, cameras flashing. Backstage, reporters swarmed. Miss Okoye, what's next? Is it true you're marrying Han Jae-ryong? What do you say to the people who called your voice cursed? Yara smiled. My voice was never cursed. I was just singing for the wrong reasons. Now I sing because I choose to. That night, the news ran the story. From waitress to icon, Yara Okoye's impossible comeback. In a small apartment across town, Mrs. Kessler watched the broadcast. She'd lost her job, her reputation, everything. The screen showed Yara and Han leaving the venue, Minjun between them, a family. Mrs. Kessler turned off the TV. At the mansion, Yara tucked Minjun into bed. "Are you staying forever?" he asked. "Yes." "Promise?" "Promise." He smiled and closed his eyes. In the hallway, Han waited. The ring was still in his pocket. She hadn't answered yet. "I'll marry you," Yara said, "on one condition." "Name it." "Never ask me to sing for power. Only for love." He pulled her close. "Deal." Outside, the city glittered. Somewhere, a waitress wiped down tables. Somewhere, a girl practiced scales in a cramped apartment. Somewhere, a voice waited to be found. Yara looked out the window. Her reflection stared back. Not a victim. Not a contract. Not a weapon. A woman who turned fear into music. And music into freedom. But freedom came with a price. And the question remained. Was her voice her greatest gift? Or the chain that would bind her forever? Thank you for being part of this journey, besties. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our next unforgettable tale. Drop a comment telling us, would you choose love born from survival or walk away? Free? Your answer might inspire someone who needs to hear it. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that even broken voices can still sing. See you in the next story.